From his legendary Monaco win to some of the best late-breaking the sport has ever seen, Daniel Ricciardo was once hailed as a future Formula One world champion. But in recent years, his reputation has been dragged through the mud, leaving him fighting for his place in Formula One. But how did Ricciardo go from being F1's next brightest star to a driver whose very presence in the sport is now under fire? Ricciardo's rise to F1 stardom began in 2011, when he made his debut for the HRT team at the British Grand Prix. Whilst it was effectively a backmarket team, it gave Ricciardo some much-needed F1 experience, and his results in testing were impressive enough for Red Bull to sign him to Toro Rosso for the 2012 season. His time at Toro Rosso was when his skills would truly begin to flourish, and that infectious smile of his won the hearts of fans across the world. After an impressive 2 years with Toro Rosso, Red Bull boss Christian Horner decided Ricciardo was ready and promoted the Aussie to the main Red Bull team. Now, the next few years at Red Bull are what most people consider to be prime Ricciardo. I mean, the guy was finding gaps that didn't exist and sending it into dive bombs left, right and center. In his first year at Red Bull alone, he won 3 times and bagged more points than his teammate Sebastian Vettel, who was the reigning world champion. Over the next few years, he would secure a flurry of victories and podiums, but his career-defining race would come at Monaco in 2018. Having been denied a victory at Monaco in 2016 due to a pit stop error, Ricciardo was more determined than ever to win this Grand Prix. He gave this race his all, showing his heart, determination and resilience. And despite a power loss issue, Ricciardo managed to defend against a charging Sebastian Vettel, securing a legendary win. However, the 2018 season was no fairy tale for Daniel, as Max Verstappen was emerging as the new front-runner at Red Bull. Tensions within the team were evident, reaching a breaking point with the infamous Baku incident.
He's going to try and dive down, and suddenly have crashed! They've gone into each other!
It was becoming increasingly clear that Red Bull was placing all of their chips on Max. And so, halfway through the season, Ricciardo announced his shock move to Renault, seemingly unwilling to play second fiddle to his younger teammates, and as Christian Horner put it, he was running from a fight with Max. His move to Renault, while certainly a downgrade from Red Bull, at least made some sense on paper. He'd be joining a manufacturer team with a proven championship-winning record, where he would be the clear #1 driver. And I'm sure his $42 million per year salary made the deal at least a little sweeter. Whilst the Aussie's time at the French team didn't live up to his Red Bull glory days in terms of podiums, it did cement Ricciardo as a force to be reckoned with on the track. Daniel's form during the 2020 season was arguably his all-time best, as he continued to impress with his legendary overtakes and defending, which earned him a podium and 5th in the championship, despite only having the 5th best car. But it would be his next career move that would spell complete and utter despair. Despite only spending 2 years with Renault, Ricciardo decided to jump ship at the end of the 2020 season, moving to McLaren. McLaren were on the rise, securing number 3 in the 2020 championship, so naturally there was a lot of hype surrounding the move. But it wasn't long into the 2021 season when the troubling realization emerged that the McLaren was not in any way suited to Daniel's driving style. In fact, it was almost the exact opposite to what he was used to. The McLaren was known for understeering, which is something Ricciardo hadn't had to deal with at his previous teams, and he lacked confidence on the brakes compared to his teammate Lando Norris, who was better adapted to the car. Despite his struggles, Ricciardo still had a few, albeit sporadic standout finishes, with his best being Monza, where he even claimed victory.
And for anyone who thought I left, I never left.
But unfortunately, Ricciardo had in fact left, as he would continue to struggle across the following 2022 season, where he only scored 37 points compared to the 122 points of his teammates. Ricciardo's lack of pace cost McLaren 4th in the championship to Alpine, and it was evident that McLaren was sick of the Aussies' poor performances. McLaren were in fact so fed up with Ricciardo that they paid him $18 million not to race for them in 2023, terminating his contract prematurely. So in just the space of a few short years, Ricciardo had gone from being one of the most sought-after drivers on the grid to a driver whose own team paid to get rid of him. And so his dismissal from McLaren left him without a spot on the grid for the 2023 season. Despite not having a seat, Ricciardo managed to cling on to his F1 career by signing with Red Bull, but this time as a reserve driver and brand ambassador. This still left him effectively benched for the 2023 season. But fortunately for Daniel, luck would be on his side, as he would be offered a seat at the Red Bull Junior team AlphaTauri just 10 races into the season, replacing a struggling Nick de Vries, who had a less than successful start to the season.
Oh my god.
Now, this was it for Ricciardo, his last real shot at Formula 1. So, did he deliver? Well, not really. Despite some promising simulator work and praise from Christian Horner, Ricciardo failed to impress on track, routinely being outclassed by his much less experienced teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Although his return to F1 was somewhat underwhelming, he still bagged a contract with AlphaTauri, now renamed RB for the current 2024 season, which brings us to this year. The start of the season was nothing short of dismal for Ricciardo, with instances such as being eliminated in Q1 at his home race of Melbourne, while Tsunoda made it into Q3. And after a string of poor performances, criticism was mounting, with calls to replace Ricciardo with reserve driver Liam Lawson becoming increasingly common. We can now fast forward to the present day, where we're midway through the season, and the pressure surrounding the Lawson-Ricciardo switch are only increasing. Helmut Marko has made it clear that Red Bull investors want RB to revert to operating as the junior Red Bull team, which has no place for Ricciardo. But this isn't necessarily the end for Daniel, as he has had a recent upturn in form which sparked rumours that he may potentially replace the struggling Sergio Perez after the summer break. Whilst this move is difficult to justify, given he's still trailing Tsunoda in the standings, Marko has implied that if Perez continues with his substandard performances and Ricciardo can continue on the upward trends, then he may be promoted to the Red Bull seat.